Hey, what's up, guys? Hey, John Sonmez here from simpleprogrammer.com. Yes, I love saying that. I haven't, I'm getting used to saying that again, simpleprogrammer.com. But anyway, I wanted to share with you guys something that's really cool. I've got here Jason Humphrey, who is actually, he's one of my clients, my personal coaching clients. I've personally coached him, and he is actually a coach and mentor to a ton of students at Thinkful. He has helped so many people with their software development careers, and he's actually authoring a course for us at Simple Programmer. And there's really no better person to do this course on imposter syndrome. So I thought it'd be kind of cool to, for those of you that don't know Jason, I mean, again, one of the most stellar coaching clients that I have had, that I've personally had the pleasure of coaching. But I wanted to introduce you guys to him so you guys know who Jason is, right? And you can kind of hear just what he's about, and about imposter syndrome, and just talk about this topic, because this is something that is kind of near and dear to my heart. I have definitely experienced imposter syndrome in my career. I know pretty much everyone has, right? And Jason has, and I've, it's one of those topics that I help coach people through all the time, and Jason does as well. So if you have any kind of imposter syndrome, if you've ever in your life, you're going to want to stay tuned. You're going to want to watch to the end of this video, because we're going to be dropping some knowledge bombs here that I think are going to help you a lot in dealing with imposter syndrome. So with that long intro, welcome, Jason.
Oh, thank you, John. It's a pleasure. And I definitely want to start off with telling a bit of my own story, right? Telling everyone a little bit of like how this all, for one, came about, but kind of where it came, especially like really close and near and dear to me. So the years ago when I actually started coaching with John, I actually had the imposter syndrome. And it's funny, we never totally directly like hit on it, but some of the things looking back that you actually helped me out with were definitely towards the imposter syndrome. And I think that just goes to show how this problem kind of hides between and underneath a lot of things that we just don't talk about on a daily basis. I actually got a recent YouTube comment on my own video that was like imposter syndrome to the T, and they didn't even realize it. And the funny thing is, I didn't even realize it back when I needed, when I was really starting out on my own, like starting out to really on the uptrend of everywhere where I've been to now. I really experienced it hardcore, and it's interesting to see that throughout all of my experiences and all the things like especially you've helped me with, and like getting to where I am now, going from associate all the way to principal, that every step of the way, I felt it no matter what I did, whether it was like the fear of failure, the self-doubt kicking in, or the anxiety of like, I have this big thing to do that I'm not sure if I can do it. I feel like someone's going to walk in at any moment and say, you're a fraud. You don't belong here. Get out.
Exactly.
I imagine you might have felt that at some point too, John. There's a lot of them that like this stuff has creeped in, and it was so near and dear to me, but I've had the fortune of being able to, I feel as though, deal with it and embrace it. Because I don't know if you can truly ever get rid of this, right? Because there's always new experiences in life, whether you're taking on a brand new team and managing people, or you're moving up to like rental or like whole properties, like massive 32 unit properties potentially, like you might be, or moving up in your career to senior. Like this happens at every phase. So learning to embrace it, because you never truly overcome it, but learning to embrace it is one of the biggest things I've learned to do.
Yeah, it's interesting when you talk about that, that way. It kind of reminds me of fear, right? Like, the thing about fear is like you can't control it. And I think to some degree, right, the same thing, you can't really control imposter syndrome or feeling, feeling that way. But like for fear, you can control courage. You can have courage. And I think it's the same exact thing too here. What you're saying is you can have courage. Like you can learn to not try and never have imposter syndrome. Like you can't control really emotions like that come up within you, but how you deal with them, right? And it's the same thing with fear. It's the same thing. It's you can have courage. You can practice and exercise having courage. And that's why I was excited when you guys were talking about this idea of doing the imposter syndrome course, because I know that like the solution is not to just say, okay, don't have imposter syndrome. The solution is to say, okay, how can you deal with this and still have it? It's fine, but how can you actually operate and be effective and deal with it and be able to realize that this is going to be a reoccurring theme in your life. Because anytime you're doing something that is like challenging you, that is above your pay grade, or you're gonna experience that. I mean, I still experience it today. Like, as I'm launching new business, as I'm doing things that are like, I was just running the marathon last week, and I'm like, who am I? Am I like actually a marathon runner now? Like, but I guess I am, because I'm running a 4-hour or under 4-hour marathon. But I myself at one point, I'm like, am I really actually going to be able to do this? Like, who do I think I am, like, doing this, right? And then I have to deal with that. So this is good. So tell me, what dealing with a lot of students, and just, I mean, from what you've seen in the industry, how do you normally like see this? Like, what is this? Because again, like, I think is beautiful that you said you're like, I didn't really even realize it, and people don't necessarily address specifically, I have imposter syndrome, but there's these hints, there's these things that, because it holds you back, there's certain symptoms. What are the symptoms that you often see that indicate imposter syndrome?
All right, yeah. I've got a couple for you. I'll definitely got a couple for you. I want to say too, you have never felt imposter syndrome until, like, the most extreme imposter syndrome, until you try to create a course on imposter syndrome. Let's be really clear about that.
I love it. I love it.
True. I am the most, like, I must be the biggest imposter of them all. Like, who am I to create a course? Like, I felt the exact same way as like you were trying to go run last weekend. So to the point of symptoms, like, how does this manifest, right? This is key. Let's talk about that example of, I got YouTube comment the other day of someone reached out to me. The biggest way I see this manifest is someone wants to perfect their craft, and I see it like an analysis paralysis. Or like, oh, if I just study up more, I'll eventually be able to complete this. Or if I just wait and pause and go study and go take some Udemy courses and then complete this, I'll be good. And that never comes around. And because you never get around to potentially completing the Udemy courses, and you never get around to doing stuff, and you don't just jump in. And so I see that that's a huge one, is that whether you want to call it perfectionism or procrastination, or you lack that confidence, or feel like you lack that knowledge. Those are some of the most common symptoms around this one thing of like, I don't have this, so I'm just gonna wait. I'm gonna go take some Udemy courses, and then I'll come back.
Right. So if I understand correctly, what you're saying, like, this symptom would be like someone that willing to do the thing or jump in, even take a training, because maybe they're afraid that they're not actually prepared yet. They're going to be embarrassed. Like, maybe someone's like, oh, I really want to do coding boot camp, but I'm not going to do a coding boot camp until I'm actually good enough to do a coding boot camp. And so it's actually holding them back from doing something. And then they're never actually even going to do it at all, because there's so much now. They're like, oh, well, I have to do all this stuff. They're like trying to prepare before, almost like, before the training.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's exactly right. That's exactly how I see it too. And so that's one of them. Let's talk about another one. And let me see, I have a feeling you'll be able to resonate with this one and help out on this one too. The fear of failure is the big, I know we already kind of touched on a little bit, but that's another symptom that manifests big time with a lot of people, because I hear it all the time, especially even helping out with different things on like why boot camps are successful. I get this all the time of like, I can't possibly succeed there. Or another way this manifests is like, people hide and they go into the dark, in the sense of they won't answer emails, they won't answer texts, they won't, they all of a sudden just go dark. And like, oh, if I just don't answer, it's not a big deal. Like, I don't have to deal with it. I can't, like, they don't have to deal with it. So they just hide. And that's their fear of failure talking, or like, skipping classes and things. Going dark is kind of where it all resolves around.
Right. Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. So so the fear of failure. So if I feel like I'm an imposter and I don't belong here, really the way that what ends up happening is that I'm fearing the failure, because if I fail, then I'm exposed, right? I think that's maybe the underlying thing, right? If I fail, then everyone will know, right, that again, even I could go back to me running that marathon, right? Like, I told everyone I'm training to run a 4-hour under 4 marathon, right? And I put it on social media and I did this. And so there was a brief second in my mind, oh, I won't lie to you, where I was like, maybe I should call in sick for this thing. Right? Because then I could be like, oh, well, you know what I mean? Like I was sick. I was sick. So,
I think we should all
it's a brief second, but there was a, there was a real significant, concern in my mind that I had to, force out of my mind that said, hey, wait a minute. If you don't make this 4-hour time, you're going to be a failure. Like, you're going to be a fraud. You're going to be like, are you a fucking bulldog or no? Maybe not. Yeah. Right. And so, so I can definitely see fear of failure, like directly being a manifestation of some imposter syndrome of doubting, doubting. Are you actually what you say you are? Right.
Yeah. There's another one that I think that's really quite interesting. It's the lack of self-confidence, because what directly comes from that is generally you feeling like you don't belong, or it gets to that point of you feeling like a fraud, like someone's going to catch you out. But it kind of revolves around the self-confidence, because what I see too often, especially when I get and work with classes of people, and I will ask them when I'm doing potentially interviews with them, oh, where do you feel like you're in the class? No one ever tells me no one ever tells me they're in the top. They always tell me they're in the bottom. And it's like, and now this situation is different because it's not like they've already jumped in and they're doing a class, which is great.
Right.
But to truly unleash your potential and go further, the imposter syndrome is holding you back. Why? Because you're going to tell me you belong in the bottom half of the class. And so since you're in the bottom half, you don't have to try that hard, because it's not that hard to be in the bottom half. So you can just take it easy, because then you won't be found out. And then you feel like you belong because you're in the bottom half. And that's easy to belong in the bottom half of the class.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That I can definitely see that one. Yeah. So if you don't have that confidence, if you don't, then you end up like falling back. You end up trying to, you could be the stellar performer, but there's too much risk in there, too much chance of being exposed. And yeah, I definitely see that a lot for sure. That's interesting too. And I think I was doing a video maybe the other day or something, and I was talking about how I'd rather see people have delusions of grandeur than imposter syndrome, because that's it's like, I mean, people are afraid to have delusions of grandeur, but you know what? It's actually a more healthy thing, I think, because if you have delusions of grandeur and you miss the mark and you're not as good as you think you are, then at least you're pretty high up there. But if you have imposter syndrome and you purposely hold yourself down below the mark, man, like there's not too much to rise. If you rise above it, sure, great, but now you've hit the middle. I'd rather shoot for the top and miss a little bit and have a little bit of a overinflated view of myself than and unfortunately more people suffer from the imposter syndrome because they're so afraid of having delusions of grandeur, right? I think that example is exactly that. They're like, well, who am I to say that I'm the top of the class? Like, go for it. Just say, yeah, I'm the fucking best, right? And see what happens. But people are afraid, and the underlying fear is what you said. Is exactly, it's imposter syndrome, right there.
Yeah, it's hiding all the time, and there's some really interesting triggers that happen here. That, like, studying this and researching this. Mm-hmm. Tell me if any of you've ever felt any of these. So there's some triggers out there that are really common, like. And this really happens all the time with natural, like, filtering, as we're calling it. From like when you go to high school to college, right? You go from a class of 1,000 people that just want to do all sorts of things to you go to a class of 200 dedicated computer science students that all want to do the exact same thing for you. Instant trigger for a lot of people, right? Or you get that promotion or the major career transition into something you've never done. Maybe you took a boot camp and now you're a technical, or maybe you're an intern, or maybe you're a senior dev now. And that's another one, going from junior to senior. And joining and taking these major transitions are instant triggers for people with this to instantly feel this and let all of these symptoms set in on them.
Yep. Very true. It's interesting too. Like I think I was gonna say, like, if you ask like a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old or something, around that age group, if you ask a kid, who's the fastest? They're like, I'm fastest.
Yeah.
Right. But we lose that along the line, right? They're afraid, they're gonna say, no, I'm the best. I'm the best. I draw the best. I'm the fastest. Whatever it is, whatever they're the best, right? And it's what happened to us? Like, what do you think happened to us? I mean, I think this is a good question. What happened to us?
Well, I would say so. Actually, I think you're hitting it right. I like the word question because that's literally part of what I like. When I solve it, it starts becoming like, are you asking the right questions of yourself? So I think, to answer part of your question right there, is I think we stopped asking the right questions for ourselves, right? When you're younger, you ask why a million times over because you want to understand, because you're young. Yes, and you might be naive on some subjects, but you just keep asking why, and that's perfect. And the idea of being curious with your questions will actually unravel a ton of things for you. So I think it goes right around to, like, you're not asking the right questions anymore. And I think that's a big point, because even myself, when creating this course, when I got stuck, I used all my tips and tricks and tactics and all my actionable items I used during this whole course, every bit. And the one that I think stuck out that was one of the most impactful was asking the right questions. Specifically, when I got to a couple of the tough sections for myself to illustrate across to people, I got really curious. And I was like, okay, I can't explain this. So why can't I explain this? How can I explain this better? And the questions turned from I can't to how and why and what.
Right.
And that was super impactful. And I think we don't do that enough.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. In fact, as I think about it, like the kids that are asking questions, right? There's a couple of things in it. I mean, one of them is like, if you're asking why all the time, you're not caring about ego. Like, and that's the thing is, like, I think maybe as adults we're afraid to ask why, because now we're stupid because we don't know the answer. Because are we asking stupid questions? But the kids they ask plenty of stupid questions. I'm like, that's a damn stupid question. But they don't care. They don't care because they just they're more concerned with knowing why than about how they appear. And like you said, I think that the power of those correct questions, because I think a lot of our internal dialogue can be around the questions of, like, why can't I do this, or why am I not good enough, or why is this so hard for me? And those are horrible questions because they have a presupposition baked into them, which is that you are not good enough, that you are a failure, that whatever that premise is, right? That premise is part of the question, and we're already reinforcing that belief. But then when we ask the good questions, like you just said, like, how can I do this, or what is the thing that's stopping me, or how can I overcome this, or what do I need to do next? Those are great questions, because those questions, they leave our ego out of it, and they instead focus on tackling the problem, because it doesn't matter how we feel about ourselves. It matters what we can do, right? I think that's great.
And like you said in the beginning, we're going to be dropping nuggets of information. So everyone write this part down, because this is the big correlation over the years of mentoring people and figuring this out. And that is, these questions are a big secret. And there's a big secret behind why it's so effective and why it works. And that's because it takes the attention off of you and puts it onto them. That's what people forget all the time, is like, whenever you put that question back on them and you're in a meeting and you feel like you don't belong, and like you're sitting there worrying about yourself and you're in your own brain and now you're not paying attention to the meeting, when you start asking these questions and you have this curiosity and you put this onto other people and you care more about them in the conversation, you ask them questions because you want to know what they're thinking, you get this attention off you, and now it's all on them. And you're paying attention to them, and the imposter syndrome is nowhere to be found because you don't have time to think about it, because the secret is you're asking questions onto them and you're paying attention to them and not yourself. And really the value is putting it on them and working with them in the conversation.
Yeah. Yep. Now, what do you think about like social media today, right? As far as like imposter syndrome, and I think like I could say that a lot of times people see social media accounts and they see Facebook and all these things, and it's like it's all these victories, right? Especially I think for entrepreneurs, right? Like I think there's definitely big imposter syndrome there, but especially I know a lot of our simple programmer audience that they aspire, they're doing side projects, they're doing stuff, they're entrepreneurs as well in some aspects, and they see all this stuff. How does that affect our perception? Because I feel like it's more so than it ever was, because now we can see people's highlight reels and their accomplishments, whereas before we valued ourselves, we didn't have that to that measuring stick to measure ourselves against.
Yeah, I think this actually directly affects a lot of things. I think this goes right back into like the triggers of the imposter syndrome, because they only see like our successes potentially, or you only see your idol's successes and you don't see the failures. You don't see the day-to-day us going through the failures, to where right? It would be a hell of a lot easier. And if people started talking more often and actually having these conversations instead of sitting behind social media, you would realize this is extremely common. And that's also why I think this course will, like, that I'm having the honor or pleasure of doing, like, will be so effective, is because it's going to show you, even like from my own story, that this happens to all of us. And it's not just these happy tweets you see or these happy Facebook posts. There's a lot of failures here. And I think us not getting to see those sometimes will hold people back. And that's tough, right? Because at the end of the day, some people just like to see the tweets. They like social media. But if we can get them to look at them differently and mentally understand that this is not all it is, and actually show them some tips and tricks to deal with this, then it can be extremely helpful. But otherwise, it generally, I see, hurts more often than not, because they look at someone and think how perfect they are and how perfect they are not.
And I would take a moment, you guys to kind of toot Jason's horn a little bit here, because he's a bit of a humble guy, but as far as imposter syndrome, you might be wondering, what does Jason have to do with imposter syndrome, and how is this going on? But having personally coached Jason, the dude, he is just fucking stellar as far as like career. Now, how old are you, Jason?
27.
Okay, so Jason's 27, right? When I started coaching him, I remember, like, his list of accomplishments is insane. I don't know if we want to say where you work. So I won't say where.
We'll leave that one.
We'll leave that one. But let's say that he works for a big Fortune 500 company. You would definitely know the company, and they and he came in basically as a junior developer, and he came in with his own framework. It was leading teams, has been promoted multiple times, has given presentations to the executive level, of this company, big company. On the side, he's been building his side projects, right? He's invested in real estate, bought several properties, right? Done all of these crazy things, that it's like, well beyond, even when I started coaching Jason also, he was, he did the 1 meal a day, the fast, like, he ended up losing, I don't know, was it like he lost like 40 pounds or so, like, or maybe
I ended up getting down to, I think I lost 80 pounds in the end. I actually doubled. Yeah, I got really far down. I got down really far.
Yeah. So like super disciplined, like, so many dang accomplishments, running like 6-minute mile, like, after all, like, crazy amount of just work ethic and dedication, and respected in his field. Like I said, basically doing training for for this company on his own JavaScript framework that he wrote, right? And then the Thinkful, like, mentoring all these students, basically making big bucks, like working these 2 jobs at the same time. All these students counting on him in mentoring. And so, the reason why I say this and puff Jason up so big is not so that his head will blow up and not fit in the frame, but
my wife does still pop it, don't worry.
But because you guys have to understand that, like, it doesn't matter what your accomplishments are. I've done plenty of great things in my life. I'm not going to brag my own brag role here, but Jason has really, like, for someone who's 27 years old, like, he has just done a ridiculous amount of he's got a ridiculous amount of achievements that he's gotten under his belt, right? And he still suffers from this, right? And so it's like, I think a lot of people, maybe they have this impression, they think, okay, I'm going to reach some kind of point, or when I'm competent enough, right? But I can tell you, and I'm sure Jason could say the same thing, is you never really reach the point where you're beyond it, right? There's always going to be someone, there's always going to be some bar. And so, if someone like Jason, right, who in his development career has had so much success and beyond it in entrepreneurship and investing in so many areas of his life and fitness, if he can have that imposter syndrome, and I can have that imposter syndrome, then it's going to affect everyone. Like, it doesn't matter what your accomplishments. You have to deal with this problem, and the solution to the problem is not just going to be achieving more.
No, I agree, and I thank you for saying all the nice things. I appreciate it. what I wish people could see is though all my failures, so they could truly understand of how I actually got to there.
Yep.
Because like all those things, like when I started out fasting with you, I thought you were the craziest person alive, but I was like, you know what? I gotta trust the man. If I'm here with him, I gotta trust him. I gotta do this discipline, like, and I use some of the different tactics to actually overcome, which I now teach. But as it is, this imposter syndrome and the failure, I feel like creeps in every day. Even writing this course, there were parts where like I wanted to talk about action-based techniques of like, how do we actually get you to move forward? How do we help like understand your mindset to move forward? And I remember this one explicitly a couple weeks ago, writing this down, going, who am I? I'm overwhelmed, can't do this, close the laptop. And I was about to walk out the door and I thought to myself, what can I do? What can I do? Okay, I'm overwhelmed. That means I should use a chunking technique. Okay. And I sat back down and I did it. But like, there are so many times I do walk away and then come back, but it sets in all the time. And I wish people could see this failures and these times that this shit just goes south. And it becomes right. Bad begets bad and good begets good. So how do we right this wrong and get back on the right side of the tracks? And actually, I think that quote I learned from you, actually.
I like it. Yeah, no, it's true. It is true. And you've got to have that. You got to be able to figure out a way to get your momentum back and to do that. And it affects everyone. But once and I like that idea of the chunking it, because that sometimes I can break it down into smaller pieces and you can get some small wins. You get the small wins under your belt. So, it starts getting you on that momentum train, and then you're the winner. You're on the winner train instead of the loser train, because the loser train, goes to it takes you down. It takes you in that downward spiral. Yeah. So, now one thing, I think this is probably worth addressing too, is we were just kind of talking about this before we jumped on the call here. But, one thing that you guys may have heard me talk about in the past is this idea of faking it till you make it. And while, I think that fake it till you make it is still a valid thing to do, I think it's more misunderstood, right? And Jason was saying, I like fake it till you make it, but you know what I'm liking better now, and I have to agree with him, is this act as if, right? I feel this is so much more, it's more of an empowering, more of a concept. So, I'm curious, what, how are you using this act as if, and then how is this, you find this helpful for overcoming imposter syndrome?
Yeah. So I'm using it to help students all the time. Let's address the fake it till you make it part first. What I actually found, because I can get behind it really, really well.
Sure.
I've always loved it ever since, I heard you say, and I was like, and I thought it all the time, but I never actually fully embraced it until I met you, and then I embraced it. And what I found over the years, though, is not everyone resonates with it. And because psychologically, that word fake sometimes gets them. And so I was always looking for something more. And then I had found it when I had heard this one day. And I'm using this to show people that it's not about you have to be a pro in this scenario. You have to be the best one in the room. It's about acting as if you're the best one in the room, because we truly know, right? You've got a lot to learn, and that's great. We'll teach you along the way. We'll get you where you need to be. But it becomes, great, we're not there yet. But for now, we need to act as if we're the best. And what would that person do? Well, they would sit up tall. They would take notes. They would actively listen. They would give their opinion where their opinion is important, as though they feel. And they would act like that person that they see, that they hold up on a pedestal of the best developer they want to be, that visual. Mm-hmm. And they'll act as if that. And that's how I try to get people to use it. And that's definitely something I teach, because it can be powerful, right? Because everybody can act as if. So exactly. I realize not everyone can fake it, but everyone can act as if.
It's absolutely true. And now I'll just draw right back on that, since I've been using the same example throughout this call, is the marathon example, right? I mean, some of you guys know, but some of you that haven't seen me before, I'm 6'3", I'm 220 pounds. Okay. I'm more of a bodybuilder than a long distance runner. You would not say, oh, that guy looks like he's a marathoner. And, I wanted to run distance. I wanted to run marathon. It's partially for the mental toughness, partially because I'm just fucking crazy. And I had to really practice that. I had to act. I said, well, you know what? Here's the thing. It's like, and if you saw me 3 or 4 years ago, you said, oh, this guy's never going to be able to run a marathon, 26.2 miles. but I started acting as if I was a marathoner. And so I said, well, what would a marathoner do? Well, they would run 10 miles. They would run 40 or 50 miles a week. And guess what happens when you run 40 or 50 miles a week? Well, pretty soon you become a marathoner, basically, because now you can run marathons, and you enroll in a couple of marathons, and you run those races, and then you are a marathoner. Whether you like, whether it made sense or not, acting as if is such a powerful concept, because if you do the things that a marathoner would do, you'll become a marathoner. If you do the things that a highly skilled programmer would do, you'll become a highly skilled programmer. If you do the things that Michael Phelps does, maybe you'll become an Olympic swimmer, but you'll at least become a damn good swimmer. I'll tell you that much. So that thing is, and it's such a powerful concept, I think, and it really is. It becomes true. I mean, you know, you're no longer the imposter. You start out, maybe you feel like the imposter, but you start taking the actions of the thing that you want to become, and you become that thing. It's an amazing, just thing that, and it makes sense, right? It makes sense when you think about it. If you told someone else, hey, if you, it's better than, I think, the advice of like, oh, you want to lose weight? Well, cut your calories or stop it, right? It's more like, instead, if you have the mindset of act as if you're the healthy, yoga instructor that is slim, like, then you start doing those actions and doing those things, and then you become it, and there is no imposter. There's no imposter syndrome. There's no room for it there. So
no, I fully agree. If I could say one thing to make sure everyone hears, and that is that all of this takes action at the end of the day. Like, imposter syndrome is the only, like, what you need to do is you need to take action at the end of the day. That's what this is. And that's where I'm trying to teach people everything I know and how to take action to embrace this. Because you don't ever truly, like we said, overcome it, but embrace it. And one of the things I've noticed that I want to make sure everyone hears, hopefully if you guys are still here to the end, I imagine you are, because this has been a pretty damn good video.
It's a damn good video. We're
damn good video.
That's it. I like it. See, no imposter syndrome here. Not anymore. We're overcoming this right here. We're like, no, we're gonna do this right now. Good video. We're the shit.
This is what I want them to hear. This is what I want people to hear. There are tons of great things out there that you can find, but I don't believe anyone's truly doing it the way we are, because what I see is this analogy right here, right? And I think you'll get on with this really well, John. And that is, right, if you're going to be a bodybuilder and you're going to take protein, you've got to do the lifting to take the protein, to take the supplements. If you're not doing the lifting, the protein and the supplements are useless, and the extra walks and the extra exercises and the diets, it's useless without the lifting. Right. And what I see out there and what I've studied, because I've studied the entire market, because I want to know, when I give these tips and this actual items to people, I want to know I'm giving the best stuff out there. I want to make sure I'm over delivering on everything. And what I want you guys to know is that there are a ton of great things out there that are like just giving you protein without telling you how to do the lifting, and just protein supplements, take this, take that. But if you're not doing the lifting, you're not doing the true exercises, you're not actually working on yourself, and you're just taking these things, it's going to work for one day and you're going to be out. There are a ton of very vague things out there, and it's like just taking some random protein, hoping it helps. And what I want to truly teach people is how to embrace this and how to do the actual lifting, and then supplement on the protein and the supplements and the extra diet and the all of those things, to then truly embrace and work and get stronger from this imposter syndrome, not be held back from it.
Right. I like that. And that's I think, if I understand you correctly, you're basically saying, like, look, there's a lot of good mental advice out there, and a lot of good, things that people say that will help you have the right mindset, but you need some action steps that you can actually take to overcome this, because it's good to have these kind of feel good things, and people can tell you things about imposter syndrome or help you try to make you feel better about yourself. Oh, everyone suffers from this, and it's great. But at the end of the day, it's protein without the, but you've got, and that's the thing that really, when Josh was telling me about this course, I was like, oh, this is great, is because you've got the actual action plan, the actual steps to say, okay, yes, this is the theory, this is the psychology behind it, and we're going to help you overcome it. But we're going to do it not by just giving you a bunch of rah-rah and making you feel good about yourself. We'll do that, but we're going to give you the actual steps. So not only are you going to feel good about yourself, you're going to feel confident because you're going to actually have some action that's going to lead to an actual transformation of the mind and actual skills that you can use to combat this problem that you're going to face for the rest of your life. So you might as well learn these techniques and these skills now so that you're going to be able to do that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And you got it. You understood it perfect to the T. And
Awesome.
I'm excited to give people, we're giving quick tips, like things you can, like, especially in that first part, we're giving, like, in the first part of the course, we're giving things that are like quick wins, like things you can win today that are extremely important, because if you can win them, they'll help with the bigger wins, and then we'll help with other actionable items that are longer lasting. We'll build and the psychology of it, and like the whole thing is put together to make you successful, right? And that's what we want to do here.
Awesome. Well, I think, I think this is good. I think this is good. I think a lot of people are going to benefit from this, and this is a big problem to tackle. And so I applaud you for tackling it, for facing your imposter syndrome. To because again, it's one of those things too. Like, when are you going to be ready to teach a course on imposter syndrome? Never. Right? So when are you going to do it? Now, right? Like, that's what you got to do, is like, because you've got good advice that can help people, and you got to put it out there, and hopefully people will take action and listen and follow the advice and realize that this is an important skill set. So yeah, so thanks for joining me, Jason. And like I said, you guys, I can't say enough good things about Jason. He's awesome. I don't coach a lot of people. I just don't take a lot of people under my coaching program, because I want action takers that will actually execute and get shit done. And Jason is one of those. I mean, from the beginning, I was like, this guy, he's got the fire. Like, this dude, he goes and he runs with it. And it's been amazing just seeing what he's done with his life, and just the accomplishments and everything from, like I said, from career to real estate investment to side business and hustle. And so, yeah, so, Jason is an awesome guy to learn this kind of stuff from. And and I hope you guys check it out. And yeah, thanks for taking some time and giving me the imposter syndrome spiel, Jason. Oh, lost him. He just, like, his head blew up.
Wait, what was the last part you said?
What's that?
What was the last part you said?
Oh, I just was just
now?
saying thank you. Yep. All right, I think you're coming through now. The last thing I said was that your head blew up, because I said a bunch of good things about you, and I think maybe that's what happened. But no, thanks for joining and for sharing some free info on imposter syndrome. It was a good chat. So
yeah, no, thank you. And to anyone still listening and watching, please, if you feel like this could help you in the slightest, let me help you, because I love helping people who want to help themselves. And I would love nothing more to show you how to embrace and get around and work through this imposter syndrome, because there's nothing more powerful to know you can get over your fears and tackle anything you envision. And I've done that with John over time and time again, and I'm hoping I can show you something here that helps you get over your fears and really build something you can be super proud of in your life.
awesome. Last note I'll say here is the quality of the course will be much higher quality than this video, because it's not over Wi-Fi, whereas this interview is happening over Wi-Fi. Just in case you guys are worried, it's HD cameras and nicely edited and everything. So don't worry about that. You will be able to understand the message, and it will be nicely presented. So, all right, Jason, thanks again, man. And I look forward to seeing all of you in the course.